네, 이제 본행사 일부의 마지막 순서만이 남았습니다. AI 관련 기업을 모시고 AI 컴퓨팅 인프라와 AI 모델의 시너지, 한계를 뛰어넘다를 주제로 패널 토의 시간이 준비되어 있는데요. 오늘 토의는 영어로 진행될 예정입니다. Now we will proceed with the panel discussion, and we will kindly ask our moderator and all panels to come up after we have cleared our stage. 네, 저희 무대가 정돈된 후에 오늘 좌장님과 또 패널 여러분들을 무대 위쪽으로 모셔볼까 합니다. 오늘 이 자리는 단순한 기술 발표의 무대가 아니라 AI 생태계를 구성하는 여러 축들이 또 하나의 흐름으로 모여서 가능성과 방향성을 공유하는 중요한 시간입니다. 제가 아까 말씀드렸듯이 AI는 이제 단순히 한 분야의 기술이 아니라 산업 전반을 재편하고 국가 경쟁력을 다시 정의하는 핵심 동력이 되었습니다. 하지만 또 기술 혼자서는 앞으로 나아갈 수 없습니다. 인프라, 데이터, 제도, 그리고 사람, 이 모든 것이 조화를 이룰 때 비로소 AI가 우리 삶에 실질적인 가치를 더할 수 있는데요. 오늘 발표에서 가장 많이 나왔던 AI 컴퓨팅 인프라, 아무래도 국내에서 가장 튼튼한 기반을 만드는 것이 중요하지 않을까라는 생각을 다시 한번 더 하게 되었습니다. 오늘처럼 각국 정부, 글로벌 기업, 산업 현장의 리더들이 함께한 이 자리는 단순한 정보 교류를 넘어서 신뢰를 기반으로 한 협력의 가능성을 확인하는 또 의미 있는 순간이 되었습니다. 인프라가 곧 운명이다라는 게 사실 오늘 행사의 이 주제잖아요. 한국어로 한번 제가 번역을 해봤습니다. 우리가 어떤 기반을 함께 만들고 또 어떻게 연결해 나가느냐에 따라서 AI의 미래는 지금과는 완전히 다른 모습을 갖추게 될 것입니다. 이러한 논의와 만남, 여러 가지 논의와 만남이 계속해서 이어지면서 단순한 기술 경쟁을 넘어서 책임 있고 또 지속 가능한 AI 생태계를 함께 만들어갈 수 있기를 기대해 보겠습니다. 네, 저희 지금부터 주제에 걸맞는 글로벌 기업들이 소중한 시간을 내서 참석해 주신 만큼 저희가 한 분 한 분 기업 호명해서 무대 위쪽으로 모셔볼까 하는데요. We'd like to ask our moderator and all panelists to please step up on the stage. Yes, thank you very much. We are now finished clearing the stage. GPU 클라우드 서비스를 제공하고 있는 텐서웨이브와 람다에서도 오셨고요. 독자 생성형 AI 모델을 개발한 LG AI연구원, 한국형 멀티모달 AI를 개발한 네이버클라우드, 기업 맞춤형 AI 개발 플랫폼을 제공하고 있는 업스테이지, 그리고 영상 이해 AI 모델을 개발하는 트웰브랩스에서 오늘 참석해 주셨습니다. 네, 이번 패널 토의에서도 국가인공지능위원회 분과위원장 오혜연 카이스트 교수님께서 좌장님을 맡아서 진행해 주시겠습니다. 제가 교수님께 마이크를 넘겨드리겠습니다. 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 소개 감사합니다. 이제부터 진행은 영어로 하겠습니다. So, thank you all panelists for coming, and some of you came from far away, so thank you extra for that. Originally, I was going to ask each of you 2 questions, but now I wanted to actually, the questions are kind of common across all companies. So I'm going to ask 3 major questions. I'll say them now so you can prepare your answer. The first one is about the infrastructure, because we've been talking about computing infrastructure. The second one is about the model, but when we say model, that includes data, the algorithm, computation, users, evaluation, all of that. Applications as well. And then the third question is global collaboration. So as she mentioned, so this panel is about infrastructure and the model and the synergy between the two. And of course, because we're in this context of the Korean government looking for a good national strategy, how do we get that synergy and how do we make global collaboration towards Korea and also other countries advancing ahead in this whole era of AI? Okay, so with that, the first question about infrastructure. So we have 2 companies that are represented here who are actually building these computing infrastructure. So what is your viewpoint of how the infrastructure currently is for AI, how it's going to go in the future, and the Korean government, what it has to do in order to be prepared for all of the advances going forward. So we'll start with you, Peter.
Sure, thank you very much. So I'll start out by saying that every single incremental GPU that we've deployed has been sold out. And so we haven't seen a limit to what is needed at this point. There's a lot of countries that are power limited, and Korea is not one of those. And so it's very exciting to see that the nuclear power plants can be tuned up a little bit and be able to achieve more powered data centers faster than in other parts in the world. I think that's what I'll start with.
Darren?
Hi everyone. I want to echo what Peter said, is that every GPU we have we're probably like 95% sold out. But when we're thinking about infrastructure, I think as Jason from OpenAI mentioned, there's the compute layer, but there's all the other layers on top of it: software, orchestration, data. And so for us, how we think about infrastructure is how do we make the AI engineers' life easy, whether that's by providing them AI compute that's easy to access, or once they've accessed that compute, giving them orchestration layers to make their job scheduling faster, easier. From a training perspective, from an inferencing perspective, it's hosting open models so that you don't have to train your own model to serve, to have an LLM integrated into your applications. We are hosting open models on our inferencing platform, as well as bring your own model inferencing. So it's not just the computation layer that we're thinking about in terms of infrastructure, but all the other parts of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's great. And that leads us right into the next panelist, who's LG, who has opened their models graciously. I'm very grateful for that. What are your infrastructure needs, and how does LG deal with the fact that it probably doesn't have as much compute as some of these other big companies?
Yeah, thanks for the great question. So as a company, and we are one of the few company who build a proprietary LLM and also open source LLM as well. We just launched X7 Deep model with the 3 different model sizes, and the largest model that we trained, which is a 32 billion model, still just around the 20% of the world competitors' model size, which is almost reaching 700 billions. We really try push our limit to get the competitive performance against those world-class proprietary models. But in the flip side of that, while we achieve amazing performance across different benchmark tests, especially the highly curated, the reasoning side test, what if we have that large-scale computing infrastructure, then probably we were able to build even larger model. We can do even better reasoning, which is aligned with how these models and AI will impact the world and society. So that's the most important implication toward how the company think about the infrastructure and the support.
Thank you. And Naver is the other, on this panel at least, the other big company with the big models. What are your infrastructure needs, issues? How is Naver dealing with that problem?
I'm responsible for reducing inference cost. At the same time, I'm looking at AI chip strategy. So I could see almost all the AI chip companies like Cerebras, Grow, you name it. Then what I felt during the collaboration and talks with those AI chip vendors was that they don't really understand what would be necessary and what is required by the AI service providers. So when for example, when I first met Intel leadership, it was a little bit difficult for me to educate them because for many cases, we are supposed to reveal our own service strategy and our experience, and sometimes it's very, very difficult challenge for me to reveal. Sometimes I need to wait for the permit from the Naver leadership, and then we conducted even the 4-day sprint camp held in Korea. So I invited all the engineers at Intel, and then after numerous face-to-face meetings, we could finally catch up the performance of the NVIDIA ecosystem. So that kind of promoting ecosystem would be our own strategy for the infrastructure. So that kind of collaboration is really necessary even for Korea. So why we definitely need to facilitate the chip industry, AI chip industry. So what is needed is lots of collaboration and talks between AI chip vendors and AI service providers. So that's my view.
Thank you. Let me come back to Peter for just 1 minute because before this we talked briefly and you were mentioning the AMD chip instead of the NVIDIA chip. So tell us a little bit more about that and what that means.
Yeah, sure. So, we're atypical in that we deploy AMD GPUs instead of NVIDIA GPUs at TensorWave. And when we founded the company in the summer of 23, we were looking out at what was happening in the world at the time, and there was a supply shortage. NVIDIA wasn't able to deliver the amount of chipsets that were needed that year, and we wanted to look out and see if any other company had something compelling to offer in their roadmap. And we found that in AMD's roadmap, and the most important thing, the biggest differentiator that we saw was the onboard memory that each chipset has, and that unlocks some modalities that in the NVIDIA ecosystem it takes 2 to 4 times the amount of chips to run certain video models or long context text models. So we're really excited about that. We leaned into it and we unlocked some really superior TCO for a number of clients.
That's great. Yeah. I don't know too much about the hardware side, but it seems like there's a huge opportunity there that you've found, and it seems like it's working out well. Yeah.
I mean, we're sold out. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Let me move on to the last 2 panelists that I haven't introduced yet. So we have Upstage and 12 Labs. So sorry. 권순일 부사장님 and Yoon Kim from 12 Labs. And I know a number of great startups in Korea, but I think those 2, Upstage and 12 Labs, have been sort of pioneers in really getting this generative AI to work for users, actual users. So let's hear from and we've been talking about infrastructure, but if you want, you can move on to the modeling aspect as well. So, Sunil, please go ahead.
I continued the answer for the infrastructure side. As a software company for AI, for us, the infrastructure is about the constraint and the limitation of the resource. But we do not expect and we do not just keep behind because we don't have the resource. Because that's why our company is working on to reduce and optimize the model size and how we can reduce and make the good performance model in that constraint. Of course, there is several other aspects to develop the good model, talents, data management side, of course, the way of working culture to develop the model side also. So I think the infrastructure side, if there is many infrastructure, many hardware, it's good. But if there is a limit, we should accept and how we can deal with it. And other point that we, as a software company, we expect much more from the hardware companies that we deal with the B2B business side. So we deal with many enterprise company. And as of now, still, AI technology is a quite expensive technology for many use cases. So we expect there will be the tipping point not only in software, but also in hardware should be. As you know, the smartphone is tipping point that's coming from the battery, lithium battery side. So we expect there is some tipping point that comes out from the hardware side is our expectation.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. And Yoon?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us in the session. Just a quick introduction. 12 Labs is a company that builds the world's best video understanding foundation models, where most of the companies, including OpenAI and others, build models that understand language, rightfully so, because language is such an important modality. We've started off in just having AI learn about videos, audio-visual information, And that's how we started. Started by a group of very young Korean technologists, scientists, and entrepreneurs based in San Francisco, but we also have offices in Seoul. I joined recently. My career has mostly been on speech recognition, particular modality in speech and language that's very important. But the excitement of working on videos that include audio, video, text, and language was very compelling. In terms of infrastructure, I'll just say a couple of things and then we'll move on to models. When we say infrastructure, I think that we need to be very careful in defining what it is for. Training infrastructure for pre-training very large models like the one we make versus inference, when people use these services, they come with very different requirements, service requirements as well as technical and financial requirements. So I wanted to make that distinction. The other is to expand the concept of infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we think about gas pipelines or wireless networks. And in this case, it is very natural to think about data centers or really huge supercomputing clusters as an example of an AI infrastructure. However, if we expand that concept to what Sunil said, I think we can expand it to devices in the future that have enough computing power for distributed computing, and also robotics and different things that will move around the world that have brains. So I think Korea, Japan, and a lot of the East Asian countries have strength and fortitude in terms of making these devices really efficient and effective. And so I think that globally we should educate the world in thinking not just about server infrastructure, but also client, device, on-device infrastructure on the edge.
Yeah, of course. It's one of the things that when you say it, it makes all of us think, oh, why didn't I think of that? Of course we're going to go towards mobile phones and using AI on their phones, not just these huge data centers. Of course, the data centers are going to provide support as well. But one thing that I wanted to go back to, Sunil, what you said, which is interesting, is that when you have these constraints, so you had the hardware constraint, and that made you build more efficient models, which is really great, and it's really advancing the technology. But we've talked about other constraints as well. So it's not just infrastructure and computation; it's data, it's what the users want, different domains, privacy, all of these things. So when you work with companies, because you provide enterprise solutions, and we're also, I'm sure you're also moving to multimodality. So what does your future direction look like? What are the challenges that you're facing?
I think after the ChatGPT movement and by 2024, everybody's looking for what kind of use cases. So everybody's navigating what kinds of AI should be. But from my experience this year, quite shifting to the value proposition, the specific use cases from the enterprise. So as you mentioned, the privacy issue and what kind of values comes out from the AI use cases. So it's much more not like just saying the AI, but what kind of product should it be. So our company, Upstage, is now shifting not only just developing the good performance model, but more shifting to developing the good product. So such as the digitalization product, we call the document AI, that digitalize, that's switching the unstructured data to the RDB or vector database. Such as the product which has the clear value proposition is now going to be improved, yeah.
That's great. Thinking of products and services, and of course we should be talking with Naver and LG, who both of which are producing these or developing these products and applications. So from Naver's point of view, and the question that I was given is about Hyperclova X being scaled down. So now you have the large Hyperclova X, now you have the smaller Hyperclova X. Is that, from the company's point of view, is it because you have to have a variety of different models for different application scenarios or products and services? What is the reasoning and what is Naver's challenge?
Yeah, so just like big tech companies, Team Naver is pretty much interested in sustainable AI services. So, for example, my optimization team, from the very beginning, we start very, very tight collaboration with the AI model architecture team, design team. And even if we have some small amount of sacrifice or some small amount of the training efficiency, we put higher priority on some reduced inference cost. So, optimization and compression algorithms are being rapidly evolved just as much as AI algorithm itself. So, just like an MLA technique introduced in the DeepSeek model, lots of amazing optimization ideas are being suggested. And Team Naver not only catching up all those techniques, but also be proactively suggesting new optimization techniques. So in other words, we trying to enhance the raw performance of LLM, but also we are trying to get affordable AI services to be widely deployed to various AI services. So one of those efforts is, again, the collaboration with Intel. So I think the promoting ecosystem, not only Intel, but also with NVIDIA, AMD, the promoting ecosystem is the key to enabling that kind of affordable AI services.
Okay, so we will get to collaboration in a little bit. Let's continue with LG and what LG is doing with XL1 model, the proprietary model, and the open model that you mentioned, and the services that you're building on top of that. As far as I know, there's an XL1 for, let's say, like chemistry or like certain really expertise domains. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the LG, because we are a conglomerate which has a lot of different associates, in some senses we have internal customers and client. So we build foundational model which can support many different subsidiaries and associates. And one of those, for example, that's an XL1 path that tries to understand the whole slide image and what types of a pathology exist for the customers. But overall, I guess that there are major couple interesting research like theme that's aligned with what people in this committee panel talked, which is a little bit personal. But last year, one of the researchers' name is Noam Brown joined. He published a couple papers and articles about the test time computing. So previously, the model and human, we always chat turn by turn, as everybody knows. And like as Jason introduced in the previous session, now the model starts to do its own turn, which we often call thinking process. And that's also aligned with the reasoning process. So just by thinking and thinking, the model gives better result, sometimes hypothesize, sometimes tries to verify the result. That shows and opens up like totally different aspect where the infrastructure and data must be understood differently. So if we have a more infrastructure, we can do more thinking process and we can do more like a simulation. At the same time, the types of data we used to consume has been totally changed so that we actually try to learn how humans think and what would be the great strategy to think about and how to verify those. And those must be aligned with how we realize our AI, not just from the model, but into some technology. And I guess that's going to be melted down into whole different solutions and applications, including the chemical domains and even the biomedical domains as well.
Yeah, there's tremendous advances in sort of scientific reasoning of these models. And so reasoning is one like big keyword. I think multimodality is another big keyword. Maybe you have thoughts on both of these.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have enough time, but I'll try to make it short. There's a Korean saying that I grew up with that goes something like 백문이 불여일견이다. And there's a similar saying in English, which is a picture is worth 1,000 words. And perhaps a video is worth 1,000 pictures or even more. We learn about the world through language, but also we learn through seeing and listening and also perceiving. And so multimodal AI is just, it's not an option. I think it's just a foregone conclusion that we'll get there. We are actually tackling this problem with a very specific focus, as startups should do. So after our video foundation models are built, some of our customers that have come to us and use cases that have been extremely interesting is, first is media, entertainment, and sports. So Disney Studios, Disney Imagineering, and Disney's corporate headquarters uses our technology to unveil a lot of the archive, massive archives of videos that they have amassed through the years. And these videos are not just videos taken by individuals or users. These are actually gold mines that have to be somehow mined and searched through. And so we provide search and retrieval technologies so that they can use the technology to create highlights, create little short clips, use them for post-production. It's even used for actually Disney parks, where real-time cameras actually recognize the scenes and different things going on. Another area is sports. NFL in the US is huge, American football. And NFL Films has about 70 years of extremely valuable archives. And so that unlocking the video search capability is one thing. The other area is security and surveillance. As you could imagine, there's a lot of video that's been generated. As a matter of fact, in 2025, IDC estimates that about 180 zettabytes of data will be created, among which it's 160 zettabytes will be video. And the vast majority of the video in the future will be not generated by human beings, but also by machines. Either CCTVs or drones or robots or autonomous machines that roam the world will actually create an abundant, massive amount of video. And so we work with surveillance cameras and government institutions and public entities, as well as privates that want surveillance. And think of Jarvis in your surveillance system, right? So those are the applications on multimodality. I think that at some point, as Jason mentioned, language and multimodal will be combined. How it's combined actually could be a little different. I differ with Jason's opinion that everything will be merged into one model. Because if you're thinking about the server, yes, that is possible. However, in an environment where you're power constrained and you're resource constrained, having a huge model actually drive a lot of the things that robots need to do might have to be rethought. So.
Okay, yeah. What you just said brings us back to the infrastructure. And before this panel, during the break, I asked Darren and Peter, the Korean strategy is to put in a lot of funding to build these AI data centers around Korea. But then there is some concern. I have heard people ask me, if we build all of these data centers with the tax money, right? What if there is not enough demand? Then the government and the private funding for that is going to not generate enough revenue. But then what Yoon has just said, like troves of just zettabytes of data, and probably even more, probably means that we do actually need these data centers to be even bigger than what we have been planning. So what are, and Darren and Peter, you've been hearing about the models and their challenges. What are your thoughts in terms of infrastructure as companies providing these infrastructures? And also you've mentioned reasoning, we've mentioned multimodality, and so these are new keywords that are somewhat different from the LLMs that we're used to. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Peter and I, when we discussed this at the break, is there a concern that the demand is not there to meet the capacity that is being deployed? We both said that if we believed that was even a risk, we would probably not be doing what we're doing. Yeah. At Lambda, like I mentioned, we deploy GPU capacity, but because of the launch of open source models, we've actually started serving some of those models ourselves on our own capacity. And we've seen that capacity go down like that. Because of innovations like reasoning, chain of thought, and our perspective is that that's not going to stop. We're still going to deploy capacity for our customers, but as these models get adopted more and more, we're going to start consuming our own capacity and being a customer of ourselves. So short answer, yeah, we don't foresee the demand being not enough for the capacity that's being deployed. Peter?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. So I have a very simple example. There's some companies beyond the United States that are using capacity at our data centers. I think the converse can be true here. If there's not enough sovereign demand, as long as you build out the supply, you can have some, trans-Pacific usage of
So it's like exporting our data center capability.
That's right. And you have that power as electricity is a really rare resource in the world now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to the last question, and I will ask the panelists to answer your question and also saying like a parting word to wrap up. So all of this, we're talking about the infrastructure, we're talking about the models. It seems like we're just moving forward, driving everything forward. But all of it has to do and end up in some value for all of us, right? And we're developers, but we're also users. And just the citizens. If you're looking at Korea, just the citizens of Korea. What are they going to get out of all this development, all this research, resources being poured into AI? And how do we collaborate globally, right, to deliver not just value for the Korean citizens, but citizens of the entire world? How do we enrich their lives? What's the value that we're delivering? And how do you actually make sure that this value is being delivered globally, hopefully equally, right?
Sure. So, in the simplest terms, in economic development, classically, it'll bring jobs, obviously, in the immediate term, but an unlock of GDP as people use agentic models and reasoning models to unlock more and more, productivity in their day-to-day work. I think it's sort of understated now, but we're going to see really exponential increase in GDP.
Yeah, if the question is how can the citizens of South Korea take advantage of the tools and how do we collaborate? Well, on the first side of how individuals can take advantage of the tools, tools like OpenAI's deep research has made my life easy, has made lives of my colleagues easier, and as those tools begin to be adopted, either developed by companies like OpenAI or by a lab out of Korea, I think that is one way. Second is education. I think new AI-enabled education is really going to transform how the next generation grows up and is able to make their mark in the world. In terms of how the South Korean government can collaborate with companies like ours, I'll speak for Lambda. It's getting involved with the project that was presented earlier in the talk as early as possible. As great as it would be to be like, hey, let's build a data center. 4 years later we have a data center. It's really important that we're collaborating as early as possible to make sure that network specifications, cooling specifications, electricity, efficiency, all of these things are being considered as early as possible, so that we don't build something 4 years. Build something that will be created in 4 years for something now. We're looking forward and into the future and building for something that will last.
Yeah, I will try to connect a couple of the questions penetrating these session. So, like Darren mentioned deep research, which I saw last around the September, and the first impression that I got was, also as a faculty member, the 60% of my job is to write a paper, and this model is really able to write pretty good draft for the paper, which kinds of democratizing all these exclusive information to the people. In the old days, just a couple of years ago, whenever this type of session was there, I try to speculate everybody will have their own assistant. Now those assistants will reach to the domain expert level, even PhD level of expertise. And those will like work around, and that's going to be the collaborational phase, not just between human and human, but also human and machine. And it's going to be like even bigger scale. And why we are building both open source and the closed model at the same time. I explained a lot about the closed source part. But still, no matter how we build these amazing research functions or the reasoning model, there are many things which is hidden like behind these model-generated result. For example, like one of our like a global research center, they try to understand how these knowledge based on different country or culture has been like differently appreciated by the model. We found there are a lot of discrepancy across different cultures, and how to like make it is more distributed and inclusive is still that's going to be keep going. And even beyond the scientific reasoning, many of other domains, not just the content, maybe the intent of doing something matter for those domain, which we are not yet even the single footprint of those. So the collaborations, we are going to go even deeper and wider. And that's not just going to be limited to the model capability and performance. It's going to be like a diverse aspect.
Again, I'm a little bit biased into the AI chip market, but I think having this kind of open discussions in Korea is really, really important. So unfortunately, when I visit some AI chip related conferences in Korea, so those conferences are probably only for AI chip vendors, and then like service providers are not very many times invited, unfortunately. Then the sharing ideas in this kind of open public place is really, really important for Korean AI chip market. So how to promote the ecosystem? So we have to share lots of ideas, and then the AI chip vendors should ask lots of questions to AI providers, service providers, what is needed in the market. So as for example, as for multimodality, so it seems like so far only LLM specific AI chips solutions are only available in the market, but actually it turns out LLM, compared to LLM market, multimodality needs even bigger model size and bigger data set. So we have new opportunities. So why the kind of a multimodality is still not affordable yet? Because it's too expensive. So I think we have tons of opportunities, and the AI, the genuine AI economy just started. So we have tons of opportunities, and we have to discuss a lot. Having this kind of opportunity is really, really good for me.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think most answers were covered before, so I answer shortly. I think the main benefit from the AI is that the minimum quality of work bar will go up. And it means that behind this productivity will go to the more valuable thing. But the important thing is that nobody knows how much this value will be. Everybody's agree that this potential will be really high, but how much is nobody know. That's why I think the most countries and even the AI ecosystem are now struggling on and push ourselves to develop more. So I think it's not only about Korea or some countries, but it's the same for the whole global. But then why we are trying more and focus more to develop the sovereign AI or the Korean side AI, I think it's already mentioned before. Even the narrative is same, but the detail is a little bit different by country. I think that's why we should keep catching the latest technology and trying to build our model and improve ourselves.
Yeah, just a note, I'll say three things. Number one, a note about developing multimodal AI models is that if you take the traditional approach of LLMs and VLMs, then it is infeasible. It is not possible economically, technically, to actually build extremely powerful foundation models. And so at 12 Labs, we figure out a way to do it with 1/10 the size of a model. And they beat the Googles and the OpenAIs, but more importantly, they provide value to our customers. And so I think the bigger is better model, that type of, I guess, conjecture is correct for certain things. But as we move on to the next phase of AI, which is physical AI is an AI that actually exists in the analog world, in robotics and automated machines and in the world that we live in. And it's very constrained because we live and we're governed by the law of physics. And so I think we have a new opportunity to not only look at multimodality, but also a new opportunity to look at what happens if we become the center of the physical AI world. And I believe that Korea, because we've had traditionally very strong hardware, software, and services ecosystems, that if we can combine them in a way that's very interesting to create capabilities in physical AI that not a lot of other countries can provide, plus we have the connectivity and the sophisticated consumer base that can actually use these things and teach the rest of the world how a physical AI application product or service works. I think that's a national competitive advantage that we should go. The world of language models is great, and I think that the US and China will still lead that pack, and we should definitely try to be a fast follower. But if we are to lead and leapfrog, I think that we got to look to the next wave. And in my opinion, that next wave is physical AI. Now, how can South Korea benefit from all of the infrastructure investments as well as other investments that public and private sectors make? I think it's the people. I think South Korea has among the best human resources in the world. So if we can have AI, all of the innovations in AI, from infrastructure down to software, hardware, services, and applications and products, if each and every South Korean can use this to better their lives and improve and actually upgrade their capabilities, that means that South Korea will become a leader in the era of AI. Not just building AI, but also using AI and actually using it for their betterment of their lives. And I think South Korea has a great chance to become a leader in this particular paradigm.
Okay, well, that sounds great. I think we've heard really great keywords today. So infrastructure, of course, is in great demand. It will stay like that. The Korean government's investment into AI data centers is a positive way forward. So we appreciate that. We should have sort of healthy competition towards better technology, faster, more efficient, more accurate, multimodality, reasoning, all of this. And this panel and the previous keynote tells us that it's not just one great model that solves everything, but you might have to have different models for different purposes. And the open discussion between people who are developing the models, people who are developing the infrastructure to run those models and do the learning of the models, as well as the people who are going to be using these AI services and products. All of this has to work together, and communication, open communication around all of this, and global collaboration to bring everything together. And that seems to be the way forward to get some synergy between AI infrastructure, models, and the citizens. All right, so thank you, panelists. So let's give them a big round of applause.